Anne Boleyn was one of the most famous and controversial queens in English history. She was the second wife of King Henry VIII and played a significant role in the English Reformation. Anne Boleyn was born into a noble family in the early 16th century and caught the eye of King Henry VIII when she served as a lady-in-waiting to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Anne and Henry's relationship was tumultuous from the start. Henry was desperate for a male heir, and Anne's refusal to become his mistress led to the eventual annulment of his marriage to Catherine. In 1533, Anne and Henry were married in secret, and she was crowned queen later that year. However, Anne's time as queen was short-lived. She failed to produce a male heir and soon fell out of favor with the king. In 1536, Anne was arrested on charges of adultery, incest, and high treason. She was found guilty and sentenced to death by beheading. Anne Boleyn's legacy is complex. Some view her as a manipulative schemer who led Henry VIII astray, while others see her as a woman who fought to maintain her dignity and independence in a male-dominated world. Regardless of one's opinion, Anne Boleyn's impact on English history is undeniable. Her marriage to Henry VIII set in motion a series of events that forever changed the religious and political landscape of England. Don't forget to subscribe.
In this video, we'll dive into the fascinating life and infamous death of Anne Boleyn. If you're like me and love exploring historical events, we'll also guide you to some of the most intriguing places connected to her story. Plus, we'll take a slight detour to share some lesser-known, quirky details about Anne Boleyn that you won't want to miss. Stay tuned until the end for those surprising facts.
Incredible that amidst the political and religious turmoil of the Tudor era, the stories of Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII surpasses the story between Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell, but not by much, because it stands out as two of the most captivating and controversial one. The story of Anne Boleyn should really be told mix in with Thomas Cromwell, who had a lot to do with who she became, including her rise and how she ended her fall. She was used by so many in her family to help them raise their status in Henry VIII court, that if it happened in today's time it would immediately be under scrutiny and written in social medias and newspapers. And for sure the paparazzi would be all over it. The story of Anne Boleyn reminds me of the death of Diana. The story repeats itself. We should put all these people to shame when we write about them. This story of Anne Boleyn, Thomas Cromwell and the power plays between them is still relevant today. It truly embodies power, politics, an emotion that we can still relate to even in this current day and age. Can we explain or describe deep down who were Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell relationship? Not really. I am at awe of the life and death of Anne Boleyn, this poor young woman, who was manipulated by her many relatives and political enemies at such a young age with nobody to turn to. The story of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell was of two influential figures in the court of Henry VIII during the Tudor period. Anne Boleyn, she became the second wife of Henry VIII and mother to Queen Elizabeth I. And Thomas Cromwell was a lawyer, statesman, and chief minister of England from 1532 to 1540. They both played such a big role, Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell, in changing the course of history during their time at the Tudor court. They did a lot of scheming together and really changed the course of history. Cromwell was a powerful lawyer who advised Anne Boleyn when she was queen and also was a very big part in her downfall. The rise of Anne Boleyn in the court of Henry VIII. The rise of Anne Boleyn in the court of Henry VIII was a remarkable event in English history. She was a woman of ambition and intellect, and she quickly rose to power at the court of Henry VIII. Her influence on the king's decisions was immense, and she had a profound impact on his reign. Anne Boleyn's rise to power is an example of how women could achieve powerful positions in the 16th century, even in a patriarchal society like England at that time. Her story is one that continues to fascinate historians and readers alike, as it serves as an inspiration for female empowerment even today. The rise of Thomas Cromwell in the court of Henry VIII is a fascinating story of ambition, determination and skill. He was a self-made man who rose from humble beginnings to become an important advisor to the king, and one of the most influential figures in England during his time. His success was due to his intelligence, charisma and ability to navigate the complex political landscape of Tudor England. He played a crucial role in Henry VIII's break with Rome and also helped him secure a male heir. His influence extended beyond politics, as he was also responsible for introducing key reforms such as the dissolution of monasteries and the establishment of new trade routes. Thomas Cromwell's legacy remains an important part of English history today. The court of Henry VIII was a hotbed of political intrigue and power struggles, and the rise of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell were two of the most influential figures in this period. Both Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell were able to use their skills in court politics to rise to power and influence Henry VIII's decisions. They both had different approaches, with Anne Boleyn using her charm and wit while Thomas Cromwell used his intelligence and cunning. Despite their differences, they both played a major role in the court during this period. The relationship between Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell. Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell had a complicated relationship that was both political and personal in nature. They were allies in the court of King Henry VIII, but their alliance was also rooted in a mutual understanding and respect. While Anne Boleyn was Queen of England, Cromwell served as her chief advisor, helping her navigate the politics of the court. Their relationship went beyond politics, however, with Cromwell providing Anne with emotional support during her tumultuous reign. Together they formed a powerful alliance that helped shape the course of English history. The downfall of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell. The executions of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell in 1536 marked a dramatic fall from grace for both figures. If you like the video, please subscribe. Both had been instrumental in the establishment of the Church of England, but their influence and power were not enough to protect them from the wrath of Henry VIII. As a result, their lives ended in execution and their legacies remain shrouded in mystery to this day. Legacy of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell in history. Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell were two of the most influential figures in English history, leaving a lasting legacy that has been remembered for centuries. Their impact on history was profound, as both were instrumental in reforming the English government and initiating the Protestant Reformation. Moreover, their legacy can still be seen in literature today, with many authors drawing inspiration from their lives and works. From Henry VIII's court to modern novels, their influence is undeniable. This video will explore how Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell impacted history and how their legacy continues to shape our understanding of literature today. I thought this chronological order of some key events in the rise and fall of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell puts everything in perspective. 1525 King Henry VIII became enamored with Anne Boleyn, who was serving as a lady-in-waiting to his then Queen, Catherine of Aragon.
Subscribe, like and comment to help us grow our channel.
He developed an intense and passionate infatuation for her that would eventually lead to a change in the course of history. 1527 Henry VIII sought an annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. However, the Pope had refused to grant the request. Although Henry was greatly disappointed by the outcome, he accepted it with grace and understanding. 1532 Anne Boleyn, the ambitious and headstrong woman of noble birth, had been granted the esteemed title of Marquess of Pembroke by King Henry VIII. This was a clear sign that Henry VIII was intent on separating himself away from his current wife, Catherine of Aragon, and in its place begin to court Anne and make her his queen-in-waiting. 1533 After Henry and Anne had secretly tied the knot, she was crowned as queen consort with much enthusiasm from the people. This was a sign of hope and joy for many, as they were thrilled to have such a strong and compassionate ruler at the helm. 1534 In 1534, the Act of Supremacy was passed which made King Henry VIII the supreme head of the Church of England and officially severed its ties with Rome. This significant act broke England away from its centuries-old Catholic faith and allowed it to form its own independent church. It was an iconic moment in English history that has had far-reaching implications for centuries to come. 1535 Thomas Cromwell, a powerful and shrewd politician, was appointed by Henry VIII to be his chief minister and began to use his influence to ambitiously consolidate his power. His efforts helped shape the English monarchy for years to come, and he played an important role in the politics of the era. 1536 Unfortunately, Anne suffered a heartbreaking miscarriage and Henry's attention soon shifted to Jane Seymour. With her health failing, Anne's enemies at court seized the opportunity to continue their malicious plots against her, including Thomas Cromwell, who had recently fallen out of favor with her. May 1536 Anne Boleyn was tragically arrested and charged with adultery, incest, and treason due to the scheming of Thomas Cromwell, who orchestrated her downfall and ensuing trial. Her life was ended prematurely as a result of these false accusations, with her innocence not being proven until centuries later. May 19, 1536 Tragically, Anne was sentenced to death by beheading and carried out at the Tower of London. It was a cruel end for a woman who had been a loyal and devoted supporter of the crown throughout her life. Her execution serves as a stark reminder of the ultimate price that can be paid for political loyalty and power. July 28, 1540. On the 10th of June 1540, Thomas Cromwell was apprehended and charged with treason and heresy against the crown, marking the tragic end to a once powerful figure in Tudor England. The charges against him were severe and he was soon found guilty by a jury of his peers, leading to his arrest and eventual execution. Despite this dark period in history, Thomas Cromwell remains an iconic figure who left an indelible mark on British history. July 29, 1540. On July 28, 1540, Thomas Cromwell, former Chief Minister to Henry VIII of England, was executed at the Tower of London in a tragic and unfortunate end to his life. Despite pleas from many people to save him from execution, the sentence could not be avoided and thus Cromwell suffered a cruel death as he was beheaded at the Tower. What goes around comes around. It's worth noting that while Cromwell played a significant role in Anne's downfall, he also helped to secure her position as Queen and was a key figure in the English Reformation. After Anne's execution, Henry married Jane Seymour, who gave birth to his only surviving son, Edward VI. Cromwell also played a major role in arranging Henry's marriage to Anne of Cleves, which ultimately failed and led to Cromwell's downfall. Following Cromwell's execution, Henry married Catherine Howard, who was also later executed for treason. The rise and fall of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell were part of a larger web of political and religious changes and power struggles during the reign of Henry VIII. In conclusion, the story of Anne Boleyn and Thomas Cromwell will be remembered for generations to come. Their tale has shaped history, providing insight into the complicated life of power and politics in England during the 16th century. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be a part of my community.
Exploring the life of Anne Boleyn, a guide to visiting the most important places in her life. Step back in time and explore the fascinating life of one of history's most intriguing women, Anne Boleyn, by visiting the very places that shaped her story. This video will answer, who was Anne Boleyn and why is she so famous? Anne Boleyn is one of the most famous figures in English history. She was the second wife of King Henry VIII and Queen of England from 1533 to 1536. She is remembered for her influence in the English Reformation, her role in establishing the Church of England, and her tragic end at the hands of her husband. Her story has been told through books, films, plays, and artworks over centuries, making her one of the most recognizable figures from Tudor England. The most important places to visit to follow Anne Boleyn's life. Anne Boleyn was one of the most influential figures in English history. Her life had a profound impact on the country's political and religious landscape. To understand her story, it is important to visit the places that were significant during her lifetime. Hever Castle, Tower of London, Hampton Court Palace and Greenwich Palace are some of the most important places to visit to follow Anne Boleyn's life. Hever Castle was where Anne lived as a child and later became her home when she married Henry VIII. The Tower of London is where she was imprisoned before being executed for treason. Hampton Court Palace was where Henry VIII courted her, while Greenwich Palace is where they celebrated their wedding in 1533. Visiting these places will help you understand more about Anne Boleyn's life and legacy. What you can learn from visiting these sites. If you're interested in learning more about Anne Boleyn and Tudor history, then visiting these sites is a great way to do so. From exploring the life of Anne Boleyn to discovering the history of the Tudors, you can get an in-depth look at this fascinating period in time. Whether you're a student or just curious about this era, there's something for everyone on these sites. So why not take a trip back in time and learn more about Anne Boleyn and Tudor history? Take a journey through time and explore the fascinating life of Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn was an important figure in the Tudor period of English history, and there are several places in England where tourists can visit to follow her life. Here are some suggestions, and please, we would like to hear from you. Number 1. Hever Castle. This is where Anne Boleyn grew up and it's located in Kent, southeast England. The castle is now a museum with exhibitions about Anne Boleyn's life and the Tudor period. $2. The Tower of London. This is where Anne Boleyn was imprisoned before her execution. Visitors can see the room where she was held and learn about her final days. Number 3. Hampton Court Palace. This was one of King Henry VIII's favorite palaces, and it's where he and Anne Boleyn stayed during their courtship. Visitors can see the rooms where they stayed and learn about their relationship. Number 4. St. Peter Advincula Chapel. This is located within the grounds of the Tower of London, and it's where Anne Boleyn and other famous prisoners were buried. Visitors can see her grave and learn about her execution. Number 5. Greenwich. Anne Boleyn was born in Norfolk, but her family owned a house in Greenwich. Visitors can see the house, which is now part of the Royal Naval College, and learn about her early life. Number 6. Blickling Hall. This is a stately home in Norfolk that is said to be haunted by the ghost of Anne Boleyn. Visitors can take a tour of the house and learn about its history. Number 7. The Anne Boleyn Experience at the Tudor World Museum in Stratford-upon-Avon. This museum offers an interactive experience that takes visitors through Anne Boleyn's life, from her childhood to her execution. It's a great option for those who want to learn about her life in a fun and engaging way. Tips for planning your trip and making the most out of the places to visit to follow Anne Boleyn's life. If you are looking for an exciting and unique way to explore England, why not follow in the footsteps of Anne Boleyn? From her childhood home to the Tower of London. There are many places that you can visit to learn more about this iconic figure. Here are some tips for planning your trip and making the most out of the places to visit to follow Anne Boleyn's life. 10 tips for planning your trip and making the most out of the places to visit and follow Anne Boleyn's life. Number 1. Do your research beforehand. Look up the places you want to visit, opening times, ticket prices, etc. to avoid any surprises. Number 2. Plan your itinerary. Decide which places you want to visit and in what order. This will help you make the most of your time. Number 3. Book in advance. Some places may require advance booking, so make sure to check and book ahead of time. Number 4. Consider a guided tour. A guided tour can be a great way to learn more about Anne Boleyn's life and the places you're visiting. Number 5. Dress appropriately. Some places, like churches and chapels, may require visitors to dress modestly. Be sure to check beforehand and dress appropriately. Number 6. Bring a camera. You'll want to capture memories of your trip, so be sure to bring a camera or smartphone to take photos. Number 7. Bring comfortable shoes. You'll be doing a lot of walking, so make sure to wear comfortable shoes. Number 8. Bring a map. A map can be helpful for navigating unfamiliar areas and finding your way around. Number 9. Be respectful. Remember that the places you're visiting may hold religious or historical significance, so be respectful when visiting. Number 10. Take your time. Don't rush through the places you're visiting. Take your time to appreciate the history and beauty of each location. By following these tips, you can make the most out of your trip and gain a deeper understanding of Anne Boleyn's life and legacy. Stay for the next half of Anne Boleyn's life in chronological order. Whether you're interested in her early life, her relationship with King Henry VIII, or her tragic end, there's something for everyone. Embark on a journey through the life and legacy of Anne Boleyn by retracing her footsteps and discovering the places that were most significant to her. If you're a history buff or simply fascinated by the Tudor era, then exploring the life of Anne Boleyn through the places she lived and visited is a must-do experience. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. Then you'll be a part of my community. The life of Anne Boleyn, Queen of England. The second wife of Henry VIII. Key events in the life of Anne Boleyn. Anne is born in either the 1501 or 1507, although the exact date of her birth is uncertain. Most historians believe she was born in 1501. Her birthplace is believed to be Blickling Hall in Norfolk, England, and she was most likely born around the year 1501. Thomas Boleyn and Elizabeth Howard were her parents and gained titles of Earl of Wiltshire and Ormond and Duke of Norfolk. Anne was the second of their 3 children, with an older sister named Mary and a younger brother named George. There is no clear consensus on whether Anne Boleyn had a happy childhood or not. Some historians suggest that she had a privileged upbringing in her father's household, where she was educated in languages, music, and dance. She also spent time at the court of Margaret of Austria, where she was exposed to the culture and politics of Europe. However, others argue that Anne's childhood was marked by instability and uncertainty. Her mother died when she was young, and her father's career was subject to the whims of the Tudor monarchs. Moreover, Anne's family was not always in favor with the royal court. Despite these challenges, Anne's intelligence and charm helped her to navigate the complex world of court politics and ultimately become Queen of England. 1514 to 1519, and serves as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Claude of France. It is not entirely clear who arranged for Anne Boleyn to become a lady-in-waiting to Queen Claude of France, but it is believed that her father, Thomas Boleyn, played a key role in securing the position. Thomas was a diplomat and courtier who had close ties to the royal court, and he likely used his connections to arrange for Anne's placement. Some historians have also suggested that Anne's sister Mary, who was already serving as a lady-in-waiting, may have recommended her for the position. Regardless of how she obtained the position, serving as a lady-in-waiting in the French court. And it was a significant opportunity for Anne to gain exposure to the culture and politics of Europe, which would later play a role in her life at the English court. Anne serves as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Mary Tudor, Henry VIII's sister. There is not enough historical evidence to suggest that Anne Boleyn served as a lady-in-waiting to Mary Tudor, the sister of Henry VIII. There have been rumors and speculation that Mary had an affair with Henry VIII before he became involved with Anne, but there is no concrete evidence to support these claims. Mary was rumored to have been a mistress of the French king, Francis I, and it is possible that she may have had affairs with other prominent men at court, but there is no evidence to suggest that she had a romantic relationship with Henry VIII. It is important to note that many rumors and myths have surrounded the Tudor court, and it can be difficult to separate fact from fiction. 1522, she returned to England in 1522 to serve as a lady-in-waiting to Queen Catherine of Aragon, the first wife of Henry VIII. 1525, and returns to England and catches the attention of Henry VIII. They begin a romantic relationship. There is no solid historical evidence to suggest that Henry VIII and Anne Boleyn began an affair as soon as she started serving as a lady-in-waiting to his wife, Queen Catherine of Aragon. Although it is known that Henry was attracted to Anne and pursued her for many years before their marriage, there is no record of a romantic relationship between them until several years after Anne's return to England in 1522. It is believed that Anne initially resisted Henry's advances, and it was only after several years of courtship that she finally agreed to become his mistress. Even then, their relationship was kept secret and discreet, as Henry was still married to Catherine and divorce was not yet a viable option for him. It was only after years of political maneuvering and legal battles that Henry was able to annul his marriage to Catherine and marry Anne in 1533. So, while Henry and Anne did eventually have a romantic relationship, it did not begin immediately upon her arrival at court as a lady-in-waiting. 1533, Anne secretly marries Henry VIII, and she is crowned Queen of England on June 1, following Henry's annulment of his marriage to Catherine of Aragon. September 7, 1533, Anne gives birth to her only surviving child, Elizabeth, who would later become Queen Elizabeth I. Yes, Anne Boleyn did give birth to a son, who would later become the future King Edward VI. Anne's pregnancy was announced in the summer of 1533, shortly after her marriage to Henry VIII was declared valid by the Archbishop of Canterbury. She gave birth to a healthy baby boy on October 12, 1537, at Hampton Court Palace. The birth of a son was a great relief and joy to Henry, who had been hoping for a male heir to secure the Tudor dynasty. However, Anne's joy was short-lived, as she was accused of adultery and treason just a few months later and was executed on May 19, 1536. Edward was just 2.5 years old at the time of his mother's death, and was raised by his stepmother, Jane Seymour, who had given birth to Henry's next son, Prince Edward. May 2, 1536, Anne Boleyn was accused of adultery, incest, and treason on May 2, 1536. Anne Boleyn is arrested and imprisoned in the Tower of London. The charges were brought against her by Thomas Cromwell, Henry VIII's chief minister, who was instrumental in orchestrating her downfall. The accusations were based on the testimonies of several men, including Mark Smeaton, a musician at court, and Anne's own brother, George Boleyn. The charges were also supported by the testimony of Anne's ladies-in-waiting, who were questioned about her conduct and behavior. Anne vehemently denied the charges, but she was found guilty in a trial that lasted just 2 days. Anne falls out of favor with Henry VIII, and a series of events leads to her downfall. She is accused of adultery, incest, and treason. May 19, 1536, Anne is tried and found guilty of the charges against her. She was sentenced to death and was executed just 17 days after the charges were first brought against her. May 19, 1536, Anne Boleyn is executed by beheading at the Tower of London. After her death, Anne's marriage to Henry VIII is declared null and void, and their daughter Elizabeth is declared illegitimate. After Anne Boleyn was executed for treason, her father, Thomas Boleyn, and her brother, George Boleyn, were both arrested and sent to the Tower of London. They were accused of participating in Anne's alleged crimes and were put on trial. Thomas Boleyn. Her father was eventually released and allowed to retire from court, but he was stripped of his title and his lands. George Boleyn, her brother, however, was found guilty of treason and was executed alongside Anne. Anne's mother, Elizabeth Boleyn, and her other siblings, Mary and Henry, were not implicated in the charges against Anne and were not punished. However, their reputation was tarnished by association, and they were excluded from court life and the royal family's favor. Anne Boleyn's downfall had a significant impact on her family, causing them to lose status and influence at court. It also marked a turning point in the reign of Henry VIII, as it paved the way for his subsequent marriages and divorces, which would redefine the religious and political landscape of England. 1940, Thomas Cromwell was one of the chief architects of Anne Boleyn's downfall, and he continued to serve as the chief minister and advisor to King Henry VIII after her execution. He played a key role in the king's divorce from Catherine of Aragon and his subsequent marriage to Jane Seymour. Cromwell was instrumental in promoting the English Reformation and was responsible for dissolving the monasteries and confiscating their lands, which helped to increase the king's wealth and power. Despite his many successes, Cromwell's fortunes began to turn in the mid-1540s. He faced increasing opposition from conservative factions at court and was blamed for the king's disastrous marriage to Anne of Cleves. Cromwell was eventually arrested on charges of treason and heresy in 1540, and he was executed on Tower Hill on July 28 of that year. His fall from grace was sudden and swift, and it marked the end of an era in English politics. Elizabeth I, however, later becomes one of the most famous monarchs in English history. This chronological timeline provides a condensed overview of Anne Boleyn's life, focusing on the most significant events. Her marriage and subsequent downfall had far-reaching consequences for English history and the establishment of the Church of England. Please subscribe and like this video. Discovering the quirky and weird things that made Anne Boleyn unique. We can start with the most amazing one. Did you know that Anne Boleyn had a sixth finger on one of her hands and went to great lengths to conceal it? Who was Anne Boleyn and what makes her quirky and weird? She was an English queen who lived in the 16th century and is remembered for her controversial and often bizarre behavior. The second wife of King Henry VIII, and her reign as Queen of England lasted only 3 years. Despite her short tenure, she left an indelible mark on history with her unique style of ruling and her eccentric personality. Her life story is full of twists and turns that make it interesting to learn about. We'll explore what made her so unique. and why she is remembered as one of the most quirky and weird historical figures to ever live. One of history's most fascinating figures. Anne Boleyn has long captivated the imaginations of historians and the general public alike. Known for her role in one of the most tumultuous periods in English history, and has been the subject of countless books, films, and television shows. But beyond her infamous reputation as the second wife of King Henry VIII and her untimely demise, there are many quirky and weird things about Anne that people may not know. Anne had a sixth finger on one of her hands, which she went to great lengths to conceal. According to some accounts, Anne had an extra finger on one hand, which she went to great lengths to conceal. While there is no concrete evidence to support this claim, it has become part of Anne's legend and adds to her mysterious and intriguing persona. She was considered a fashion icon of her time and introduced the French hood, a popular headpiece for women in the 16th century. First and foremost, Anne was a trendsetter. She was known for her fashion-forward style, which included wearing French hoods that showed off her forehead and braiding her hair in intricate designs. She was also a fan of the latest beauty treatments, including using lead-based cosmetics to achieve a pale complexion. However, this trend-setting behavior wasn't always appreciated by those around her. In fact, her fashion choices were often criticized by conservative members of the court, who saw them as scandalous and inappropriate. Anne was known to have a sharp wit and was skilled in poetry and music. Another interesting aspect of Anne's personality was her love of music. She was a talented musician and enjoyed performing on the lute and singing. In fact, she was known to have a beautiful singing voice and often sang in public. She also had a particular fondness for French chansons, which were popular at the time. Anne's love of music was not just a personal hobby, however. She used her musical talent to charm and entertain the king, as well as to gain favor with foreign dignitaries. Anne was also known for her intelligence and wit. She was fluent in French and had a keen interest in politics and religion. She was a devout Protestant and used her influence to promote the ideas of the Reformation. She was also known for her sharp tongue, and her verbal sparring with the king was legendary. In fact, it was her intellect and wit that first attracted Henry to her, and she often used these qualities to her advantage in court. She was rumored to have had affairs with several men, including her brother, George Boleyn, and musician Mark Smeaton. Anne's execution and subsequent legacy have cemented her place in history. Despite being accused of adultery, treason, and incest, there is still much debate among historians as to whether she was actually guilty of these crimes. Some believe that she was a victim of political machinations and a king who was desperate for a male, while others argue that she was indeed guilty of the charges against her. Anne was accused of witchcraft and was said to have used spells and charms to win over Henry VIII. Despite her many talents and accomplishments, Anne was not without her flaws. She had a reputation for being ambitious and ruthless, particularly when it came to securing her position as queen. She was known to have a sharp temper and was not afraid to use it when she felt threatened. If you like the video so far, please subscribe to help me grow my channel. She also had a tendency to be jealous and possessive, particularly when it came to Henry's attention. These qualities, combined with her outspoken personality and unconventional behavior, made her a target for criticism and gossip at court. Anne Boleyn suffered multiple miscarriages and stillbirths, which may have been due to a rare blood type called Rh-. Anne Boleyn's tumultuous reign as Queen of England was marked by tragedy and misfortune. During her time as queen, she suffered multiple miscarriages and stillbirths, a heartbreaking reminder of the fragility of life in the 16th century. Despite these struggles, Anne Boleyn's legacy has endured throughout history, inspiring generations to come. The controversial side of Anne Boleyn everyone forgot about. Anne Boleyn is one of the most famous queens in English history, but her life was not without controversy. Her marriage to King Henry VIII caused a rift with the Roman Catholic Church, and she was accused of having multiple lovers and engaging in treasonous activities during her reign. This video will explore the dark secrets about Anne Boleyn's life that many have forgotten about, including the scandals related to her marriage to Henry VIII and her eventual downfall. Anne was executed by beheading on May 19, 1536, at the Tower of London, and her body was buried in an unmarked grave. Regardless of the truth, Anne's execution was a dramatic and tragic event that has captivated people for centuries. Her legacy as a powerful and controversial queen has inspired countless books, films, and other works of art, and she remains a fascinating figure in popular culture to this day. I can only marvel at the enduring fascination with Anne Boleyn and her impact on history. Following her death, rumors circulated that her ghost haunted various locations, including the Tower of London and her childhood home, Hever Castle. The mysterious death of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, has been a topic of fascination for centuries. Since her death in 1536, rumors have circulated that her ghost haunts various locations associated with her life, including the Tower of London and her childhood home, Hever Castle. It is said that visitors to these locations have experienced strange phenomena that suggest Anne's spirit still lingers in these places. It's believed that Anne's daughter, Queen Elizabeth I, may have worn a locket containing a miniature portrait of her mother. Queen Elizabeth I was a powerful monarch whose reign is still celebrated today. One of the most intriguing aspects of her life is the possibility that she may have worn a locket containing a miniature portrait of her late mother, Anne Boleyn. This would be an incredibly touching tribute to Anne's memory and legacy, and an enduring symbol of Elizabeth's love for her mother. In recent years, forensic analysis of a piece of cloth believed to have been part of Anne's dress has revealed that it may have been made in Italy, suggesting that Anne may have had access to high-quality materials from abroad. Recent archaeological discoveries have shed new light on the life of Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII. Analysis of a piece of cloth believed that this new evidence has provided researchers with a fresh perspective on Anne's life and her place within the Tudor court. These are just some of the many strange and fascinating aspects of Anne Boleyn's life and legacy that continue to capture the public imagination. Anne Boleyn is a figure shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Her life and legacy are filled with strange and fascinating facts that continue to captivate the public's imagination. From her alleged sixth finger to her untimely death, Anne Boleyn's story still fascinates us to this day. Please subscribe and click the bell to receive notifications of new videos.